In the age of the internet, we have unlimited access to whatever we want to play, watch, or do. So, why is my generation turning away from the internet for physical media?
The internet has done a lot of great things for us, but one thing that I think all of us kind of feel is that, while we have everything on our phones and easily accessible at any point, I think we're starting to realize that we don't own any of that.
Movies, books, and shows can be difficult to find exactly what you're looking for without having to get several very expensive subscriptions from different services. And then even then, the streaming platform could just remove your favorite show at any time they please.
Instead of endlessly scrolling through Reels or TikToks or that toxic Twitter thread that you're looking at, when you have physical media, it's much easier to choose it intentionally. When you pop in the Wedding Crashers DVD, you are choosing to watch Wedding Crashers. It's not content that's just forced down your throat. Now, of course, there are thousands of videos on this topic already. It's a bit of a trend, and most people are making the return to physical media, which, I think is great. But I think instead of, really making this video about, the pros and cons of social media versus physical media, I think it's more important for me to tell you my experience and what I have learned and gleaned as I've kind of made a transition away from digital media to physical media. So my experience with the return of physical media is pretty simple, honestly. Something that I might have said on this channel is that I'm a big fan of Pokemon. I've been playing the main series games and all the spin-off games and collecting Pokemon cards since I was a kid. Recently, I had wanted to kind of just re-experience a lot of the Pokemon games for the 30th anniversary of the Pokemon franchise. So, I dusted off my 3DS. I hadn't played Pokemon Omega Ruby in a very long time, so I picked that up and started playing with my fiance and one of my best friends. And we just had a blast playing through the game together, playing side by side and playing it in chunks so that, nobody got too far ahead or behind, really. From there, it kind of started into wanting to play other retro titles, but this also made me want to collect more games that I had given up through my childhood. I went off, sold them, gave them off to friends so that they could play them. And I think I started my journey with a Game Boy Advance. I ended up buying a Game Boy Advance online. I started dusting off some of my old Game Boy games. I actually went to a local retro game seller in my area, and they actually fixed up some of my dry batteries so that I could save the games and actually play them again, which was just so cool. And it's great, being able to play a game I haven't played in a really long time and give it new life again. I did all this also because I had deleted social media, and I kind of used it as my doom scroll in a way. I'd bring my DS or my Game Boy games along with me, and if I needed to tune out or I needed to kill some time, instead of being on my phone or something, I used my time intentionally by playing games that I loved, which was a great time to it was a great way to give time back to myself. But I think most of all, what I really loved is something that I just mentioned, was how it brought me and my friends together.
Social media promised connection, and sometimes it absolutely delivers. But I think many of us have ended up spending more time around each other than actually with each other.
Physical media really helped me to connect with my friends and the people around me a little bit more. Like I mentioned, playing video games with my fiance and my two best friends, playing through Pokemon Ultra Moon or playing through Pokemon Fire Red together late into the night. I would come home from work just looking forward to doing that with them and being able to spend that time together, doing something I love, but also being able to share it with the people I love. And it doesn't really stop there. Me and my brother-in-law, we have also kind of started collecting vinyls, and we connect a lot through music. And we have a really solid vinyl collection split up between me and him and our other roommate, Sebastian, who you've seen on this channel before. a long time ago. But I could also imagine that it would be invaluable in other ways. Like one idea that I've had recently is that maybe I could start doing like movie nights and buy a VCR or like a DVD player, and we go out and we buy physical DVDs or movies or TV shows, whatever, and we have a night where we just hang out and we watch those. But also like there's family consoles, family retro consoles like the NES or the PlayStation 2. And the PlayStation 2 is something that my friend Sebastian has set up in our living room, and we had like the best time the other day just playing through GTA and literally doing nothing else but just like running around in co-op and like setting up cheats and stuff. It was really fun, and it was a connection I haven't had with somebody in a while. The last time I think I might have had a connection like that was when I was sleeping over at my friend's house, and we would play through their backlog of video games and just mess around. Also during like parties and stuff, when we have people over, the vinyl record player is a great way to share some of our music tastes with our friends and kind of gather around a record. It's something that's really a connecting experience. It really brings people together physically rather than digitally. And I think that's beautiful. Speaking of art in general, I found that, collecting physical media or, collecting vinyl records or collecting video games has also been a way for me to discover things more organically.
I've been buying retro games I've never played before, buying vinyls because the cover pops out to me, and discovering I actually enjoy the project.
Discovering organically is been so cool because I'm not like relying on a algorithm's recommendation to me. I can actually use my own brain in the situation where I'm like in a store to decide if something piques my interest or not.
Algorithms are great at showing us more of what we already like. Physical media has pushed me towards things I never would have clicked on otherwise.
We live in a world that forces content down our throats and is trying very hard to steal your attention away from you. In consuming physical media, whether it be vinyls, video games, music, whatever you collect, consuming in that way is so much more intentional. It gives you some of your own time back, some of your own agency. Now, that being said, the reason I made this video wasn't exactly to harp on social media versus physical media, but really to kind of talk you through the experience that I've had while going through this journey and some of the dangers that I've noticed and thought about over time since I've been doing it. Part of the thing that my generation and what I've always wanted was a place to escape to. And I think a lot of people have replaced that with social media, but then when they find, for example, this trend, it's really easy to replace the social media with the physical media, which has dangers in of its own.
I've noticed myself lean on physical media to solve everything related to living more intentionally. I use it as an escape and a catch-all solution for my problems. The issue is, physical media, especially video games, can still be addictive and potentially destructive.
You don't want to lean too heavy into anything and end up just replacing your social media addiction with something like a video game addiction or, something where the point was from switching from social media to physical media to gain some time back. You actually end up continuing to lose time because you've just lost yourself to something else. I noticed is that my brain was kind of so fried from brain rotting all the time that when I switched over to gaming, and particularly gaming, I found that since my brain was so rotted, playing video games felt healthy and productive, which is a bit of a trap in of itself. And don't get me wrong, I think this trend in this way that we're moving back towards physical media is such a good thing, and I'm so glad that it is making a comeback because I think it will help people live a little bit more intentionally. But I don't think that physical media is the point. I think that the overall point, at least for me, was living intentionally. And I think that's what we're all after here. And that's why why this has become such a big trend is, we're all looking to live more intentionally. I think we have all felt the spiral out of control that is scrolling social media or being on your phone and stuck on your phone. So currently I am trying to do my very best to use physical media as a tool to kind of take my life back step by step. And I think that's what it is physical media is a tool, it's a stepping stone that all of us can use and take to being more intentional with our time here. And there's one last trap that I've noticed for myself is the consumer trap. It's really easy to turn this good thing, this tool, and kind of turn it into something that is an addiction. I know for myself, when I started dusting off the old 3DS games and fixing up my Game Boy games, when I fixed up my Game Boy games, I already had a Game Boy that I could use to play Pokemon Silver in. But instead I was like, I'm gonna buy a whole new Game Boy Advance so that, I can experience this in color. And this purchase, this $150 purchase is justified because it's gonna help me. It's gonna help me be more healthy and live a more fulfilling life. And then, kind of the same thing with like buying 3DS games and DS games and expanding my collection. Suddenly, collecting and consumerism was actually the thing versus living my life intentionally through physical media, which I think is a very important distinction, right? There's the consumerism side, the addiction side, and getting lost and making unnecessary purchases that you feel are justified for your health and for your personal well-being, for a healthy lifestyle change. And on the other hand, actually just using this to live your life more intentionally.